Today I'm going to share with you my favorites from May. It's kind of an awful month in the sense that I don't have any of my favorite books. I have taken my stack of books I even read, and I am so late on this that I've already given them to friends, donated them, I don't have them, and also I didn't make anything in May. So overall, sort of a fail of a month. But if you don't know who I am, my name's Lily. I'm the book reviewer behind Utopia State of Mind, and I'm gonna share my favorite books because some of these were probably what will you will see later in some of my favorite books of 2026. Let me just start about what happened in May. In May, I came back from visiting my family, then I visited other family for some pretty momentous birthdays, and then I was maid of honor in a wedding, which was more than I thought, but also I've never been maid of honor, so that was really fun. Stressful, kind of exhausting, but really fun. So I basically had a month of reading that was all over the place. I tried to read and I just kind of read as much as I could, but my month is everywhere. Statistics wise, I'm awful in this month. Making wise, didn't make anything. I'm still working on my orchid bloom sweater. I posted some videos of that on TikTok, which I will link down below. And that has been really, really hard. I am almost done with one of the sleeves, and then I have another sleeve, and then I'm finished. So you will see it in the June wrap up. I promise you will see it in the June wrap up because I'm kind of done with it. I hate doing the sleeves. Please save me from that. But yes, it was just exhausting. Like it was exhausting, stressful. April, as you saw in my April wrap up, was also exhausting and stressful. And so April and May, and now some of June. July is going to be the month where it's probably going to be the hottest, but I'm just going to have to relax because April and May have been a lot. I already August has been starting to rumble in August, and in general I just I need some time. I also still have some earring projects that need to be done now, which is why this whole thing is also very late. But yes, that's what happened in May, and also what I made in May, which is basically I worked on this sweater, but nothing else, and it's not even done. So was I with stats? I've already foreshadowed bad. So I read 31% of the books that I read in May had queer characters as main characters, and 38% of those had BIPOC characters as main characters. So, if you are new here, my goal is always 33 and 50. Didn't make it. Didn't make it by a lot and a little bit, but didn't make it, period. So disappointing. That being said, though, I read, as I said in the beginning, some of my favorite books, which I think definitely will come up in the 2026 favorites. And they are all adult reads, no YA reads from May, May 2026. So let me just start off with what should I start off with? It's all over the place as well. So, first of all, it is Love Among Thieves, which is such a great book. I had a really, really fun time. I have been really loving romance stories that have heists in it. You will see it in an upcoming video, I promise, because I'm loving this kind of genre subtrope thing. There's nothing better than having the adrenaline of a heist and comparing that with romance. Basically, one of our main characters, I think it's dual perspective if I remember right, and so one of our main characters, she is a hacker, but she's kind of a Robin Hood-esque hacker. She ends up stealing from the wrong person. The person who ends up being getting in trouble for what she's done ends up finding her and is like, hey, you're really talented, let's do this in a much better way. Also, my boss sort of hates me and doesn't know about you, but definitely will hate you. And so romance, it also has group heist crew dynamics, but the romance is just so good. I loved it so much. This was just I feel like this was one of the first reads that I read in May that was able to crack through the intense exhaustion and stress and traveling. You know, when you're traveling and you're just kind of you catch yourself reading but nothing is going in. This was the first book that really in May was able to crack through that, and I love it for that. There is something to be said about a romance book that just sweeps me away, that makes me really excited to read it, even though I am bone dead exhausted at the end of the day, and Love Among Thieves was definitely one of them. Then we have We Dance Upon Demons, which is not just so far away from that, but basically, it is a contemporary fantasy. And so our main character, she works at a sort of Planned Parenthood adjacent clinic. They don't necessarily, she doesn't work at Planned Parenthood, but they have similar kind of responsibilities, and she works there. And so obviously, because this is set in the United States, obviously, people hate her. People hate her for standing up for women's rights to medical care. They protest against it. They have threats. She gets, like, it is just everything that you have thought, or everything that you could hope is a dystopian. It's very real, and it's also in this book. And basically, she ends up, through a series of things that happens, ending up kind of getting involved with this demon, this demon character, which has this really fascinating premise about having power, feeling powerless. Like the exploration of those kinds of topics, having power and feeling powerless, feeling silenced, and having the ability to have power and to say something, and in this kind of awful, stressful, hate and ignorance and fear driven climate and culture in which she is working, and people are just really, really awful to her, protesters and people who are harassing these women who need care. It just, as a book that was, it sounds like it would be so dreary and so awful. And while there are definitely realist points of view, like realism in that, because those things are awful, there is just such a beautiful sense of hope and community and what it means to kind of continue to resist and fight and survive. It just was so fantastic. If you have read this author's other work, not at all like that, because this is contemporary fantasy, but this one swept me away. I loved it so much. I was actually surprised that I loved it so much because, as I said, this was a really exhausting, stressful month of May, but this one was just so compelling. It made me cry, but it was so compelling and I loved it so much, and that's why I had to mention it. I think it's the perfect balance between realism without pulling their punches, without sugarcoating, but also about telling a story that uses fantasy as such a beautiful metaphor for change, for community, and what we can do with fantasy as a genre. That just loved it so much. Then we have The Winged Game, which is my most recent favorite from May. I basically finished it, I think, like May 31st, basically. Oh my god, this was so good. I did not think that I was gonna like this one because I don't love sports books. And so the main premise of this one is by Sophie Kim, who wrote Cover Here, which I really, really loved, but I haven't read the second up. But so I knew that the character work and the romantic tension obviously were going to be there, but I didn't know about the sport. So basically, it is a rivals to lovers premise, and one of the characters was called out for cheating in this kind of winged sport thing. They play they play on winged mounts, and they have gems, and they kind of try to steal it, but also there's battle. It's kind of like air on mythical creatures, intense rugby, but they're also stealing and attacking each other. It was okay. I'm not a sports person, so don't ask me the rules, don't ask me how it looks like. I also have aphantasia, so that whole aspect, I really wasn't sure how prominent it was going to be, but I think what I ended up really loving about this book, it is so driven by characters. It is so driven by the interactions between the team members, who I love. Every single one of these team members, they are just so fabulous, even the ones that are a little bit annoying, but they are so fabulous. I love their interactions. The side character game of this one is just beautiful, but also the main characters of this book rip my heart out. I was crying when I finished the ending of this book. It is just because you have this one character who is just, her whole life is this sport, okay? And it was brutally ripped away from her, and you will read why. Brutally ripped away from her. And so this is her comeback story. Her comeback arc is not at all what you would expect for this. And then she is just fighting so hard to be heard, to be understood, and to be seen. Everyone hates her. They call her a cheater. Everyone is awful to her. Social media is awful to her. But she is trying so hard because she just loves this sport so much. And then we also have a main character who has like a deeply working through things, is kind of very cold, but is cold because they're not sure if they can really trust people. And then there's fireworks, there are sparks between them in large senses because essentially kind of they're fighting each other. They can't trust each other. But their interactions, them seeing how they have misseen, sort of misunderstood each other throughout the years and throughout their rivalry. It just, oh my gosh, it was so good. I love it so much. It is literally one of my favorite books of 2026 already. I ended up reading this. I was about 50% through of this book. I had so many different books I needed to read, but I said I was going to read 15% of this, and I tried so hard and I failed because after I did the bare minimum of work for that day, read until I finished it. Like I had to read it. This has been one of those things that hasn't happened to me in so long where I have dropped everything and just read until the end. This is it. If that is the one thing you remember about my feelings about the Wing game, remember that. And then finally, it is You Did Nothing Wrong, which is a horror book. Yes, in the year of 2026, me, the biggest scaredy cat in the world, reading horror books. But You Did Nothing Wrong is one of those. It was just, oh my gosh. You have to get comfortable with the feeling of being uncomfortable when you read You Did Nothing Wrong because it is just so good. You don't know who to believe. It's like that feeling of the hair rising up on your arms the entire time, not knowing the who to believe, what you're even seeing, the creepy house, which becomes a character of its own, these people who are so fiercely entrenched in these illusions that they give off to each other about who they are, what they love, what they're like, the roles that they feel that they've been forced to play, and the roles they cast themselves in as well, in terms of like, I'm a villain, I'm a victim, I'm a hero, I'm a mother, I'm a parent. It just was so good. I wrote the review for this one last night and I struggled to describe how much I loved this book without spoiling it because it is multi-layered and nuanced about the lies we tell each other, what it means to be a good daughter, a good child, a good parent, a good family member, what it means to have conditional and unconditional love, and it just ended up being a horror book that engages on all of these different layers and all of the senses basically, and I loved this so much. um I think this may be my first ever CJ Drews book that I have read, but this one is fantastic. CJ Drews is an author that I've had on my shelf forever. I actually have, I think, all of CJ Drews' books on my shelf. I've been following CJ on Instagram since forever, since before an author. And so You Did Nothing Wrong, though. It just takes the cake. I have really been getting into horror this year, which has been terrifying for me, but we're just gonna roll with it. I might end up this year becoming a horror reader. Like, is that a thing? Those were my favorite books of May and what happened in May. Let me know down below what some of your favorite books were for May and what books you're excited to read in June. This is such a late video, but in June. I will see you in the next video, and I hope you have a really great rest of your reading day, week, month, and year. Bye!